"Why aren't you eating dinner?" my father-in-law Adrian asked, noticing that there was only enough food at the table for 3. We were seeing him for the first time in a long time, gathering for New Year's. "It happens all the time," I muttered under my breath. "What?" Adrian looked curiously across the table at my mother-in-law Sally and my husband Emmett. "What exactly do you mean by 'it happens all the time'?" he added. "A daughter-in-law who can't give her mother-in-law grandchildren would have to be a slave, wouldn't she?" Sally responded casually, chewing on the hamburger steak I had made, as if her words were second nature. "That's right. Teresa is our slave," Emmett added with a grin, sipping his beer loudly. "She stays in the kitchen to take care of us while we eat." His tone mirrored Sally's, casual and biting. As expected, Emmett took me to his mother's every weekend to help with housework. "Even though you can't give her grandchildren, I'm letting you stay here. You should appreciate her and do the best you can for my mom," he would say, as if I owed them my existence. I didn't want to go to my in-laws' house, but I had made a commitment. Even if I refused, Emmett would verbally push me into it. He knew how I struggled with a short temper and difficulty finding my words. "Mom, I brought a slave." He even greeted me that way recently when we arrived. "What are you talking about?" Adrian seemed offended, his brows furrowing as he addressed Sally and Emmett. "That's no way to speak to Teresa," he remarked. "That's a normal family with children," mother-in-law retorted, mocking. "Teresa's infertility took the possibility of grandchildren away from you," she continued. "Teresa, it's not your fault," Adrian said, turning to me. His voice softened as he continued. "You shouldn't be treated like this," Sally scoffed, waving him off. "What do you mean, Adrian? You live so far away, so stay out of this. You don't understand our family dynamics," my mother-in-law added. "That's right, Dad," Emmett continued, clearly dismissing his father's concern. "Don't tell me what to do. You didn't have to watch Mom lose the possibility of having grandchildren." Their mocking tones stung, and I busied myself with tossing the coffee beans into the grinder, pretending not to hear. My mother-in-law and Emmett always ordered coffee the moment they finished eating. I hadn't even had the chance to eat dinner. The only thing I'd managed was a piece of sweet bread earlier while I was shopping for Sally. As I was grinding the beans, a single coffee bean escaped and fell to the floor. I stared at it for a moment, feeling an odd kinship with the way it had fallen out of place. My name is Teresa, and I'm a 37-year-old housewife. During weekday lunch hours, I work part-time in the kitchen of a family restaurant. My husband and I rent an apartment. I used to work at the same local bank as Emmett, but I left 3 years ago. I quit to focus on fertility treatment. We were unable to have children, and after a year of trying, we were told the issue was on my side. Shortly after that, Emmett and Sally began to change. Originally, we both worked and managed our own income and budgets. But when I quit my job, Emmett took over the finances, our savings, rent, insurance, and started giving me money for living expenses. First, we lived comfortably on $1,000 a month. However, when we stopped fertility treatments, Emmett was quick to say, "Since we don't have treatments anymore, you can save money." Those were the first words he said when we made the decision to stop trying to conceive. "What?" I remember asking, shocked. "Because of the financial burden of the treatments, I've been giving you more money, but you don't need it anymore. You can go back to work if you want," Emmett said coldly. True to his word, he cut back the allowance, first to $800, then $600, then even $500 a month. Desperately, I tried to find work again, but my mother-in-law, of all people, got in the way. "Working full-time isn't good for a wife," Sally would say dismissively. "She will tell you that if you don't share the housework, she will divorce you," she added. "So you're saying I shouldn't work?" I once asked, hoping for clarity. "Of course not. Part-time work is fine, but your priority is Emmett and me. You can't give me grandchildren, so it's the least you can do," Sally uttered, her voice sharp. "Is it really so terrible that I can't have children?" Despite going through painful treatments, I wasn't able to give them a child. My mother-in-law, however, seemed to revel in my misfortune. "My bathroom's filthy. Come clean it," she demanded. "Drive me. I'm going out to dinner with a friend." Her requests were endless, and each weekend, I found myself at my in-laws, running errands and cleaning. No matter how hard I tried, nothing was good enough. "Why are you folding the laundry like that? Fold it properly," Sally once shouted, throwing the laundry I had folded neatly onto the floor. She seemed to take pleasure in belittling me. After dinner that night, Adrian stood up and glanced my way. "Teresa," he began, his voice tentative. "I'm going out for a drink. Would you like to join me? You don't have to if you don't want to." I hesitated, but the sincerity in his eyes made my decision for me. "Okay," I whispered, unable to hide the exhaustion in my voice. He must have sensed it too. "I was thinking about what happened during dinner," Adrian said gently as we left the house. "You've been treated so badly by Sally and Emmett." His words tugged at the knot in my chest, and without meaning to, I started to cry. Adrian reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. "It's okay. If you want to talk, I'm here to listen." We ended up at a small, cozy bar in town. It was quiet, with just a few people scattered at tables. Adrian ordered a beer, and I went with a whiskey soda. We also ordered mixed nuts and a salad to share. After a sip of his drink, Adrian leaned forward. "Sally and Emmett's behavior during dinner was unacceptable," he began quietly. "And I can't stand it anymore. I'm blamed for not being able to have children," I told him, "and I'm forced to run errands." My father-in-law listened intently as I shared my troubles. "My husband won't let me work full-time. He's reduced my living expenses. Now he only gives me $500 a month. What I hate most is being called a slave," I continued, feeling the weight of the words. My father-in-law sighed. "Sally is not happy unless she gets her way." "Yeah, I know," I said, nodding. "She wasn't like this before, but she became selfish after having Emmett. She would yell at me so much that I began to dislike her. And now we pretend to be a happy couple," Adrian continued. After his words, I genuinely envied my father-in-law for having a place to escape to. "You're not tough enough to make yourself heard," he added after a moment. "Yeah," I agreed, a bit defeated. "But venting to you makes me feel better." "Good," he said with a smile. "That makes me happy." Before leaving the restaurant, we had one more beer and whiskey soda. But just as we returned home, the situation unfolded. "I'm back," I said, opening the door. My mother-in-law and husband were both standing there, glaring. "Dad, did you have a night out with my wife?" Emmett asked sharply, his eyes narrowing at the two of us. "What?" "I just invited Teresa for a drink," my father-in-law explained calmly. My mother-in-law, Sally, was furious. "What kind of relationship is this where you can go out for drinks together?" I tried to speak up, but she cut me off. "What are you thinking, Teresa? Isn't it wrong for a wife to go to a bar with a man? You can't give me grandchildren, but you still have desires?" she rebuked. Emmett and Sally both pointed accusingly at me. "Enough!" A powerful voice echoed through the room like thunder. My father-in-law was livid, his eyes blazing as he stared them down. "What is it with you two and your obsession with desire? All I wanted was for Teresa to relax." The intensity of his anger made my heart race. Mild-mannered people, when enraged, are often the hardest to face. "Sally!" Adrian bellowed. My mother-in-law shuddered, clearly shaken. Whether she was scared of him or hiding something, I couldn't tell. "You said, what kind of relationship do you have with your father-in-law that you go out drinking together? That's my daughter-in-law you're treating like a slave, and I took her out to get her mind off things. That's all?" My father-in-law tried to explain. Sally's lip curled. "Because of Teresa, I can't have grandchildren." My father-in-law turned toward her, eyes burning. "How can you say that when you hate children?" Those words stung. "What?" I cried, barely able to contain myself. For years, Sally had blamed me for not giving her grandchildren. "Well, grandchildren are different than other children, aren't they?" Sally mumbled, now on the defensive. "That said, I don't think you wanted them enough to treat Teresa like this. You're just making excuses to point the finger at her," my father-in-law said coldly. Sally opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She averted her gaze, too afraid to meet his eyes. "Emmett," my father-in-law said, turning to his son. "Wait, what?" Emmett stammered, taken aback. "I heard you only give Teresa $500 a month for living expenses. Do you keep the rest of your salary?" Adrian asked. Emmett shifted uncomfortably. "No, I pay rent and insurance," he muttered. "Even so, my father-in-law said, his voice growing sharper. I don't think that's all of your salary. Emmett turned his head away, biting his lip. He had no quick excuse this time. I came here to discuss our future, my father-in-law said, his voice steady now. Let's get right to it. He led us into the living room. What do you mean, discuss our future? Sally asked, her voice overlapping with Emmett's as they both followed. My father-in-law stood his ground. We've been pretending to be a couple for years, Sally, so we no longer need to live together. I'll live where I want, and you can stay here, he concluded. That's fine, Sally exclaimed excitedly, but then her tone changed. But, Adrian paused, I changed my mind after you accused me of being unfaithful earlier. I'm selling the house, Sally. I'll leave you, he added. No, Sally gasped, standing up in shock. Where am I going to live? Why don't you just get a place of your own? My father-in-law said with a raised eyebrow. How am I going to do that? Sally cried. I can't pay rent. Get Emmett to help you, he continued. He only gives her $500 a month. I'm sure he can pay for you. That's not possible, Emmett said, throwing up his hands, looking increasingly nervous. My father-in-law's eyes narrowed. What do you mean it's not possible? If I do that, I won't be able to pay Mom's debt, Emmett blurted out. Sally gasped. My husband swallowed hard, but I caught it. Debt? Sally had debt? You just mentioned debt, didn't you? My father-in-law asked, his voice low and dangerous. Emmett fidgeted, glancing at his mother. It's Mom's debt. I'm her co-signer, he confessed. My father-in-law's face tightened. Explain, he demanded. Sally burst into tears, but his fury didn't wane. Mom owes me $50,000. I'm her co-signer, Emmett said finally, his voice resigned. At the time we stopped fertility treatments, Mom made an investment. She made some money at first, but then the stock market crashed, my husband explained. My father-in-law's expression darkened further. You mean you lost money in the stock market and went into debt? Emmett nodded. I used family funds, he explained. At the time we were told the stocks would go up, but instead we went into debt. Now I'm paying it with my salary, and Mom's repaying it by working part-time at a supermarket. I had never heard anything about stocks or debt. All this time, Elizabeth had blamed me for not having children, but now I realized she had lost everything on a gamble, and we were all paying the price. I couldn't help but say the first thing that popped into my mind. That's also when you and Emmett began treating me like a slave, I blurted out, looking at my mother-in-law. Teresa, what are you trying to say? She asked, her voice laced with confusion. Were you just taking it out on me? The slave treatment started around the time I stopped fertility treatments. I doubt it's because you wanted a grandchild so badly. The simple answer is that you were taking it out on me because that was satisfying, I said angrily. My mother-in-law stayed silent, as expected. Emmett, my husband, shifted uncomfortably. He had been using the money he took out of my monthly expenses to pay off his debts. He could save money because there was no longer fertility treatment. He didn't give me less money for some unknown reason. He just needed the money to repay his mom's debt. You stupid idiot, my father-in-law finally exploded, unable to hold back any longer. Even if it's family money, it's money I worked for and saved. You put it in stocks without consulting me, and to top it all off, you lost it. What kind of money are you spending? He demanded, his voice shaking with anger. After saying this, my father-in-law suddenly left the room as if something had clicked in his mind. He looked like he was headed to the second floor. We all followed him. What are you doing? Emmett asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Show me Sally's stuff. I'll check what she's been buying, my father-in-law commanded, his tone unwavering. Stop! My mother-in-law cried and screamed, but her husband didn't care. Stop it! She shouted again, desperate now. Her husband opened the closet door as she yelled. The first thing that caught my eye was a luxury handbag. With just a quick glance, you could see at least 10 of them. Teresa, are these bags expensive? My father-in-law asked, turning to me. They're all luxury items costing over $1,000 each, I replied, still processing the extent of the extravagance. My father-in-law opened a small drawer in the corner of the closet. There was an array of accessories, rings, necklaces, earrings. Some of them had diamonds, rubies, and other precious stones on them. I picked up a ring and looked inside. finding an engraving of K18, indicating it was made of 18-karat gold. "Sally, you bought all these expensive things without telling me?" my father-in-law asked, his voice heavy with disbelief. "I'm sorry," she muttered weakly, avoiding his eyes. "Divorce," he snapped, turning his eyes on Sally with disgust. "All this spending, investing in stocks without my permission, and treating Teresa like a slave. Divorce. I want a divorce and I won't take no for an answer," he continued. "Then how am I supposed to live?" Sally protested, her voice rising in panic. "Talk to Emmett," her husband shot back. "I'll sell this house and land immediately. You can sell these bags and jewelry to pay for the move." My mother-in-law couldn't say anything back. Emmett just stood there, nodding his head and biting his lip. He no longer had the arrogant and domineering demeanor he used when he treated me like a slave. The next day, my father-in-law got 2 sets of divorce papers. "Here, Teresa," he said, handing one to me. "If you want to file for divorce too." I looked at Emmett. He sighed and looked away from me, his shoulders slumped. "Of course I want a divorce, but more importantly, I want alimony from these people," I replied. "I thought hard about this all night last night. How have I been suffering for so long? What do I want to do now?" I really wanted to have a child. The fertility treatment was agonizing, but I endured it. Then I realized I couldn't conceive, I continued, holding back the in my eyes. All the painful tests and treatments I went through to become a mother were for nothing. I can't have a baby, no matter how hard I try. As I was grieving, Emmett told me that since I didn't need fertility treatment anymore, he would reduce my living expenses. I finished. "What? Are you saying that this is all Emmett's fault?" my mother-in-law exclaimed. "Shut up, Sally," Adrian shouted at his wife. My father-in-law was horrified by the truth, and my mother-in-law immediately stopped talking. She had blamed me for not giving her a grandchild and treated me like a slave. "Do you know how hard it was for me?" I questioned angrily. Naturally, neither Sally nor Emmett would respond, but in the end, Emmett just needed money to pay off his debts. For Sally, it was just an outlet for the stress of losing money in the stock market. "I want you to reimburse me for this," I said firmly. "What if I say I won't pay?" Emmett snapped. "Then I'll talk to my lawyer," I replied coolly. Emmett put his palm to his forehead and fell silent. After the new year, my father-in-law officially divorced my mother-in-law. When he put his house on the market, he found a buyer within a few days. Someone was just looking for land to build a house in that area. So they decided to tear down the old house and clear the land before selling it. Having no place to stay, my mother-in-law moved into a rundown apartment that looked like it would cave in from a gentle breeze. She now lives with my ex-husband. In addition to their living costs, they have to pay off their debt and alimony to me, which I'm sure is very difficult for them financially. My mother-in-law is working at a supermarket during the day and a part-time job at a pub at night. Emmett also works a second job on the weekends at a wedding hall, in addition to his company job. They complain to everyone around them that it's hard to pay their debt and alimony while watching others become happy. Meanwhile, I moved into a beautiful little apartment and got a job through my father-in-law. It's a clerical job at a security company. He said I could use my knowledge of accounting and my skills from working at a bank. "I want you to be happy," my father-in-law said kindly. "If you ever need help, just tell me anything." He's on my side and I will do my best in this new chapter to reassure him. This time I will shine on my own. The morning of my first day at work, I put on a new suit and made a promise to myself.